Can you and the people on your team who represent your organization be trusted? Matthew 5:37 says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Find out why honesty is number 2 on my list of Super 7 ethical standards in our code of conduct. And I think it should be adopted in every small faith-based business and organization, including yours, on the next Doing Small Better with Layne Allen Fields. Welcome to Doing Small Better with Layne Allen Fields. I'm your host, Layne Allen Fields, and I help leaders of faith-based organizations and faith-based small businesses with revenues of $2 million or less improve their ethics, improve their effectiveness, and ultimately improve their earnings through coaching and consulting. I believe every organization should stand for something. And what they stand for should be outlined in some sort of a written ethical code, professional standards, whatever you want to call it. And this is especially true for faith-based organizations, businesses, leaders, independent contractors, what have you. For us, we have what we call the Super 7 ethical standards. And that would be respect, honesty, excellence, responsibility, compassion, fairness, and citizenship. Those are the 7 core values of Doing Small Better, Layne Fields Contracting, and anybody associated with my team. Now, these, of course, have been driven by my moral standards, which come from Scripture. And so we are a faith-based organization. And I just believe that we're called to a higher ethical standard because we have to answer to a higher authority. So to whom much is given, much is required. And so if your organization doesn't have a written set of ethical codes, I would highly recommend that you do it now, that you adopt these as soon as possible. But even more so, I would also highly recommend that when you have meetings, when you have gatherings of any kind, that somewhere in the communication, you are reminding your team what your standards are. You are reminding your team of what your ethical codes are. So let's go ahead and talk about honesty, which is number 2 on our Super 7. Honesty is so important. It's more than just a good practice. It's actually a command from the Scripture, because as believers and people of faith, we're called to practice honesty in every aspect of life, including our business and organizational lives. Truthfulness, letting your yes be yes and your no be no, is critically important for leaders of small faith-based businesses and faith-based organizations of any size. So our level of honesty has a direct correlation to our trustworthiness. And this is why it's so important to me, because if you ever want to see me get outside of my character, and you really don't want to see that, and it doesn't happen often, but when it happens, it's usually because I found out that somebody that I trusted was lying to me. And the reason why I don't like to deal with a liar is because if you lie to me about one thing, then how do I know or not know if you lied to me about other things or perhaps everything? And so honesty is not just one of my core values, but it's one of our ethical codes, one of our Super 7. What does that look like in practice every day as a leader and as a business person? Because I believe fundamentally, if the people that you're dealing with, whether they're a client or an employee or a subcontractor or a supplier or a parishioner at the church or the ministry. At the heart of who we are is supposed to be the fact that we're a trustworthy individual, which ultimately leads us to being trustworthy organizations. And how do you build trust? You build trust through honesty. But this much we all know about trust. Trust is hard to gain, easy to lose, and damn near impossible to regain after you've lost it. So the way to maintain it is to simply be honest. In the marketplace, what does that mean? Let me tell you what it means. Here's an example from my residential contracting business. From the beginning of my relationship with a potential client, all the way through until the time that they pay me my final balance. Honesty and trust building is a thread that's woven right through the entire process from the first contact. Once they call me or set up an appointment, I have to show up for that appointment at the time that we agreed upon. Generally, if you know me, I try to show up 10 to 15 minutes early, because for me, early is on time is late, and late is totally unacceptable. Now, that's not an original thought. I just adopted it for my own terms. But the point that I'm trying to make is, if I say I'm going to be there at 11 and I can't be there at 11 or prior to 11, I'll call or send a text or let them know that I'm running behind, or if I have to reschedule. It's the communication. It's the notification. It's letting them know that something that we agreed upon has changed. Even if it seems like a little small thing, in order to build trust, you have to remain true to what you said. Let your yes be yes, let your no be no. So I make the appointment. We go over what the scope of work is going to be. Once we agree upon that scope of work, I then issue a quote or an estimate. If the homeowner agrees to my pricing, my quote, then we go into contract. Once we go into contract, this is where the real trust has to become evident, because they have to give me money. I don't start any job without a deposit from the homeowner. I can't be the only one who has skin in the game. So, in order for them to give me a deposit, they're either going to send me a Zelle or write me a check, or, there are times when I'll accept credit cards, other times I won't. But the bottom line is, if they don't trust me, then why would they give me money? And if they are not willing to give me a deposit, then there is something that they don't trust about me. Perhaps they think I'm going to take their money and run. Perhaps they think I'm going to take their money and use it to fund another project. All of these things are possible, but if you've built up trust through honesty every step of the way in the process, by the time comes that they have to give you a deposit, they either trust you at this point or they don't. And so I tell people all the time, if you don't trust me enough to give me a deposit, then I'm not the right contractor for you. Let me tell you why. Because that trust is going to extend far beyond your deposit, because me or my guys or somebody from my team is going to have to be in your home or on your property. We may be around your children. We may be around your valuable possessions and things that have great meaning to you monetarily or sentimentally. And so trust has to be built by the time we get to that point. So, assuming we have the trust, assuming the deposit is made, then now the onus is on me. I have to let them know when the funds clear my account, because once the funds clear my account, that's when the material has to be ordered. And I'll have to let them know, hey, expect a delivery on the material at such and such a date, according to the supplier. And if that material doesn't show up on or about that time, then the responsibility is on me to make a phone call to say, hey, I heard from the supplier, they have a little bit of a delay or something is back ordered. Your material will be here at this particular time. All being honest, building trust, maintaining trust, and growing trust. One communique at a time. Let's say we get to the point, materials have landed, and now we have to have a date where we mobilize our people and get them on site and get the work done. Now my people have to be there on time, which means I have to communicate with them. They need to know that timeliness is fundamental to who we are and what we do. Because if we tell somebody we're going to be there at a certain time and we're not there, then they're not going to trust that we will show up. And they might go back to thinking, I never should have given them a deposit. They're going to run off with my money. And I don't want even the slightest hint of that kind of thing associated with my business. So, guys show up on time. We do what we said we were going to do. We do what we were contracted to do. We do it in the amount of time that we said it would take. If anything deviates from those plans and from those agreements, it's my responsibility or someone's responsibility from my team to communicate that to the homeowner so that we can continue to operate in a trustworthy manner. We finished the project on time, as agreed upon, on budget. Now it's time for them to pay me. And if we've truly executed the way we committed to execute, if our yes was yes and our no was no, and we fulfilled our obligations, then I expect my money. I want my money. But then trust goes beyond that. Because if I'm going to ask for a referral, one of the things that I do with my clientele is I do a review. And I say, hey, how do we do? How are my people? Were we respectful to you, to your family, to your children, to your property, to your neighbors? How did you like the workmanship? How did you like the craftsmanship? And if everything's a thumbs up, then hey, tell your friends about us, because this is how we keep our business going, through your referral. But what if something happens a year down the road because I've given them a warranty, and now they're calling me, blowing up my phone, and I'm not responding because I ain't trying to take care of no warranty? Every ounce of credibility and trust that we had before then has just been blown out of the water. And so I think you get my point. Honesty, trustworthiness is a fiber, it's a fabric that's woven right through my transactions from start to finish and beyond. You know, a business that models honesty really does glorify God, and it shows, others the difference that Christ can make, not just in your life, but also in your dealings. And ultimately, it's that trustworthiness that has long-term benefit, because trust is like currency for a small business. Trust is like currency because it leads to great clients, repeat clients, great referrals, profitable referrals. Ultimately, it leads to a great name, a trusted name, a reliable name. I could go on and on, but I think I've driven home the point. Now, here's what I'd like. I would like to actually hear from you. Put a comment in the comment section to let me know how trustworthiness and honesty has led to something successful in your organization. Or if it's an area where you think you need to improve in your organization, it's okay. No judgment here. Be transparent about it. But the main thing I want you to know is to go back to those Super 7 ethical standards. See which ones apply to you and your organization, whichever ones you want to adopt. Massage that list any way you think necessary. But the bottom line is, all of us need to have written codes of conduct, written professional and organizational standards, and everyone who is a part of our team should know exactly what our business stands for. And so how can you do small better? One way you can do small better is by really honing in on your level of honesty.